greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
Happen before the election because there's too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
I am a raging patriot. Welcome to Ksok Uncensored. Tonight's guest is a fellow Oregonian. We have Dr. Angela Plowhead, who is actually running for Oregon's 6th Congressional District. It's really cool to have a fellow Oregonian on tonight, especially someone who is making such an impact in my actual state. So I want to go ahead and bring Angela in. We have a lot to talk about today, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Come on in. I'm just going to run. It's having a little issue here. Okay, so, here we go. Okay, awesome. I was like, I can just dive into your other credentials because you have a lot of them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Kate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so in addition to your current run, you are a doctor of psychology. You actually were U.S. Air Force intelligence. And yes. And you do so much. It's amazing. I mean, your credentials are outstanding. And gosh, and thank you so much for fighting for Oregonians. As you and I probably see every hour on the hour, someone's moving away. And there's not enough of us sinking our feet into the soil here in Oregon and fighting. And thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. We have to stand and fight. We can't just give up on Oregon. You know, I keep saying that Oregon is really and that if we give up on Oregon, the rest of the country is going to fall. So we've got to stay here and fight and stay strong.
Absolutely. I mean, seriously, it's going to find, like, I get why people are moving away. And believe me, when everything really first started going down in like June of 2020, I wanted to run off to Idaho myself. But, you know, at some point in time, it's going to just be everywhere. And unless we fight. So I've completely changed my thought process, and it's stay and fight. And I have so much respect for those who are doing the same, such as yourself. So you're in the Salem, Keizer area. I was actually just out there for the Reawaken America tour with Clay Clark. So that was awesome. And I saw your signage there. So it's really cool to have you on today.
Thanks. Yeah, we're all over the place.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I love it. So I want to talk about some recent events that have been happening in the Salem-Keizer area. And for those who are not Oregonians, that is the capital of Oregon, Marion County. And so can you just actually, you know, you're the expert on this. How about go ahead and tell us about what is happening on with everything with transgender in the school districts and some recent arrests happening in that area?
Yeah, so, you know, our school has really gone woke, and it's happened gradually over the last few years. But what we have seen actually just in the last week was that our school came out with a surprise transgender policy. And that policy goes further than any other policy that I've seen in the nation. So it's K through 12. It calls for gender affirming books to be in every library with no discretion to age appropriateness. It calls for kids that identify as trans to be able to be on the sports team of their identified gender, for them to include being in the locker room of their teammates.
Wow.
To be able to use the bathroom of their choice with their identified gender. And this is the most concerning part to me, is that it also identifies that if they go on a field trip overnight, that they get to stay overnight in the room of their identified gender.
Wow.
It gives
nothing but trouble right there.
Absolutely. And so, you know, there's nothing, like in the school board meeting when we asked them about this, about, well, what are your ideas of how you're going to safeguard young women that have had a sexual assault or have some kind of sexual trauma? And they said, well, they
Right.
can come to us and tell us, and then we will let them use a separate bathroom. And I was like,
Oh,
are you
that's
aware of the
generous.
statistics on, yeah, you know, when we have um, in America, 1 in 5 women that have had to deal with a sexual assault, and 2/3 of those do not report them. And
Wow. Right.
90% of all sexual assault happen to women. To
It
me,
is
that is
horrible.
extremely problematic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I listened to True Crime and I was listening to Nancy Grace's podcast today, and she was talking about this very topic. She was saying, you know, it's completely broken. And, you know, women are raped all the time. They don't even call it rape anymore. She was really going off about that. And that the same thing, a lot of women don't report because she's like, they're going to get cyberbullied for reporting, or they're going to be, you know, harassed. There's the shame. And it's just so sad. And then we're going to just even you know, throw them right into the fire with this scenario. And who's to say, you know, it's a loophole. Some people are that truly don't feel that that's their identity are going to do that for the sole purpose of assaulting a female. I mean, I'm sure of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really really disheartening to see that coming out of you know, of the Salem area and just in Oregon in general. But it's not surprising, unfortunately.
Right.
I mean, it makes me so mad. I want to snap my laptop in half, to be honest. I mean, it's like everything. I'm like, I don't do that because that wouldn't make any sense and that wouldn't achieve anything. But that the stuff that just keeps
Yeah.
coming out, I'm like, how are we all just like, wow, how are we still just marching down and staying sane ourselves, but doing what you're doing, fighting, standing up for this. So,
Yeah.
gosh,
Well, you know, and advocates will say, well, there's no evidence to say that transgender people are actually going to harm anyone. Well, there's no evidence to say they're not. You know, most of the
wow,
studies
yeah,
that have been done on transgenderism are all qualitative studies. They're not studies that actually look at stats. They're interviews.
right, right. No, you're right. And you know, that just made me think of something. So my husband's a police officer in the Portland area, and he told me about a call that it was a family traveling through Portland from California, heading to Washington, and they let their young 8-year-old son use the bathroom in the McDonald's, and he was raped by a transgender person. And I mean, it's just one of those things, and I guess that could have been anybody, right? But it's so sad, and it just opens up way too
Yeah.
many doors
Yeah.
for harm to be done to our youth. And so Angela, I'm just wondering what should people be doing to help fight against this wokeness in the schools that's just pure dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, so they need to be going to the school boards. They need to be fighting. They need to be writing letters to the editor. Um, you know, they need to be making this public and talking about how upset they are that our young and I say I keep going back to women, but it's because the stats on sexual assault really apply to most men. And yes, men are raped too, but the number of women that are raped compared to men, you're talking 90% of women are
Right,
the ones who are.
right.
So, you know, I think we need to be realistic about this. And we have examples, real life examples of this coming out of our schools. So, and you look at Loudon in Virginia, where there was a boy that identified as a girl so he was a trans woman, trans girl, and he was using the girls' restroom. He raped one girl. They moved him to a different school where he then raped another girl.
Wow,
And
wow.
you know, and we have had 4 educators in the last 2 weeks in Oregon in different counties that have been either arrested or under investigation for sex crimes against kids. And
Wow.
yeah, and so, you know, when we are teaching this comprehensive sex education, and I don't know if you've ever looked at any of it, but some books downright pornographic.
That is
And
that is
so,
absolutely insane. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. I'm not sorry,
yeah,
I'm not sure what that background noise is, but I hope everyone can hear okay. But no, it's absolutely I have my kids are currently this is the first year we've homeschooled, And believe me, it puts a major strain on the household, but I feel like that's our only choice right now. Just because of like what you talk about, things like that are happening. And I feel like a lot of parents that just have strong morals, and really it's not even that. It's like the parents that actually are aware of this stuff, that pay enough attention to what is really happening. Those are
Right.
the parents. We're backed into a corner because it's like, knowing what I know, I can't send my kids to public school right now.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad because I think back on, I'm sure you do too. I think back on, like, I loved going to school. For me, it was just for socializing, but I loved it. And I do feel bad that they don't necessarily have that, but it's not the same world. You are not necessarily safe at school anymore, and it's just really upsetting. Um,
Yeah.
well, to pivot a bit, I know that you have strong opinions on this, as do I. AOC recently came out and she is calling for the resignation of Justice Clarence Thomas, who, gosh, he is a national treasure for us. Talk to me about what you think about AOC's stance and her call to action.
Honestly, I think it's racist. When we have a Black conservative, and, I'm biracial, I'm a conservative, and people don't like that. They don't like looking at someone that goes against the narrative. And so, he has from the beginning gone against the narrative. And they have tried so hard to demonize anyone who doesn't fit with what they think a Black person should be.
Right, right. That is so wrong.
And so,
And I don't get it. Clearly I don't get. Can you talk to me about it? It doesn't. What does this stem from? Why does everyone have to be, and I know that's a big question to ask, but why in for an African American man or a woman, or why is it that they're expected to just march in the same line as everyone else, and have the same opinions and don't go against the narrative, and like, where does this come from?
I feel like the progressives think that they have the lock on all minorities because they feel like they are fighting the good fight. But all of their policies have been so failed. They have kept people in poverty. They have helped really to fill up the jails that they say they're trying to empty out. Doing things like you know letting people out that really shouldn't be. I mean, we've seen some of that
Right,
craziness here in Oregon, right? Where our governor
right.
is just releasing hardened criminals that have committed atrocious crimes against people and just letting them out without notifying victims, without notifying victims' families, without involving people in the process. And, when you do that, you're really harming the community.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really upsetting. We're seeing that in leftist states and cities all across the United States. I know I do a lot of research into violence and crime numbers and statistics, and it's just really alarming. And again, we call them the normies. The normies don't pay attention to this stuff, and they just kind of go and get their coffee in the morning, and go on, drive their kids to their sports, and just life is good. But it's like, gosh, it's like, everything that's happening below the surface, right? That iceberg where only the tip is showing and that everything else is below the surface. And that's what's happening. And it's so upsetting that so many people are unaware of this. And you're right. I mean, I just had a guest on last week, and he grew up very, very poor in Virginia. And he was told, you vote Democrat if you're poor, and conservative Republican if you're wealthy. And so his upbringing was very much like, this is what you do because our family's poor, so you're gonna vote this way. Well, he started having conversations with friends, and that's when they were like, dude, you're a conservative. And they're like, your morals, they don't align with the Democratic Party. He was like, I'm a conservative. So it was funny hearing that realization. And it just brought me back to, like, because of the social status of his family, like, that's just what they were led to believe, like, the Democrats are here to help you. because you don't have a lot of money. We're going to have all the resources for you. And so you're right. I mean, there's a lot of that. There is absolutely a lot of that. And yeah, and it's sad. And you know, and for those that do dare, like Justice Thomas, dare to go outside of that, to, you know, to break through that, they are really put through the ringer, to say it lightly. So really, really unfortunate. But I'm glad you're speaking out against that, because it's ridiculous. And you know, one of AOC's something she's standing on is the fact that because Justice Thomas's wife allegedly, you know, was talking to some folks about Trump's concerns with the election, yada yada. We all know this, but the thing is like, wow, really? So look at Biden and his son's laptop. Like really, we're going to be so concerned about Justice Thomas's wife, what she may or may not have had conversations regarding, but we have literal evidence of what this, you know, acting president's son has done, and the president. Quite
The
frankly.
hypocrisy is just unbelievable.
It is. It's like you have the gall. You know, I follow Occupy Democrats. I follow their Instagram page because I want to see what the opposition is saying. And it almost seems like a joke website or a joke page, right? It's like so bananas that I was like, is this like a gaslighting page? Like, is this a joke? It's real, and that's really what they think, apparently. But it's alarming and it's eye-opening for sure. All right, Angela, back to you. I want to know where people can find you. Obviously, campaigning, ton of work. We need donations. Where can people find you to donate to your campaign?
Let's fix this.us.
Ooh, I like that. All right. Hey, that's a catchy one. I like that. Right,
they can even buy the merch.
Oh, that is so cool. Yes, that is smart. I love that. All right, you guys, you heard that. So you can check out let's fix this.us. We want to support, gosh, you guys, for those that don't live in Oregon, we need you. We need help. A lot of people in red states, like they feel it, but they don't really feel it. Help us out. We need great people, conservative people, to be in office and to help us. And Angela, I've heard a lot about you. I've been working with the Thielman campaign quite a bit, and so I've definitely seen your name out there. And so it's really exciting when Juan mentioned that you were available this evening. So I was like, yes, please. So is this?
Yeah, and you know what I've been telling people is that it doesn't matter where you live. When these congressional people get to Washington, they're voting for you. So it doesn't matter if you're in the same state or if you're in the same district, you know, you still support us, because when we get there, our vote counts for the entire nation.
That is a great reminder, because I don't think enough people really understand that. You know, it's something, and I don't know if you've gotten this quite a bit, but you know, when I talk about, I do a lot of little posts on Oregon and things happening, and you know, the most common response that I get now is, when are you going to move? Why don't you move? It's so frustrating. But again, back to the point made in the very beginning, is it's going to be everywhere eventually if we don't nip it now and fight like hell to do so. So thank you for calling that out, because that is so true. And that's just something that, again, not a lot of people understand how it really, like, we see things happening in Florida that positively flow over into other states. Like, we can drive change in other states through what's happening in our own. So very impactful. All right. I have one more thing for you. I'm just curious on this. I know that you're running on, and I know, what do we have? 5 minutes here. Okay. So you're running on reforming education, which I think is, obviously we touched on that. That's incredibly important. I mean, not only with all the radicalization and the wokeness of the school district, but do you know off the top of your head or about where Oregon ranks as far as testing results?
Yeah, so Oregon is 47, 48 out of the nation. So out of 50 states
Wow.
for academics. Yeah. Half of our third graders, literally 50% of our third graders, grade level, and 50% of our graduating seniors have to take remedial courses in order to take 100 level college classes.
Wow. I knew we were in like down towards the bottom. I did not know we were the bottom. That is so sad. That's not talked about enough, I don't feel like on the mainstream. I mean, it's just insane. And then just recently our governor he dumbed it down even more, right? So like nobody needs to what you don't have to test out to be able to read or write at what exactly did Kate Brown just do that she basically dumbed everything down for requirements to graduate high school, correct?
Yeah, so what they did was they said it's not equitable, it's fair essentially, and it's racist to have kids take standardized testing. So we're going to do away with all standardized testing as a graduation requirement. And so you have to prove that they can read, write, or do math in order to graduate high school.
Wow. Wow. I feel like I try to find the derivative in things because like nothing makes sense to me anymore. And so I'm always trying to find the derivative. And I'm like, what is the gain in this? Like why would she do something like this? The numbers are in the complete toilet. It's just when there's no accountability, they're going to continue to dwindle. I don't understand. Outside of the fact that the government wants us dependent on them, and so and they want worker bees, not self-thinkers, not people who can think for themselves, the entrepreneurial spirit. They want people that can just march to orders. And
Mhm.
I mean, do you have any rationale for what would be in the governor's best interest outside of maybe appeasing some on the far left to do something like this?
This is all a piece of how they march in communism. Part of that is breaking down the American structure, and how you do that is breaking down the education system. When we have people that are free thinkers that can for themselves, that are educated, then they will buck the system. They will buck crazy policies that come up. But when you have a compliant, uneducated populace, they're much easier to control.
You're right. You're right.
And
Spot on. Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry
yeah,
about
and
that.
this is something that we have known has been in the works. Actually, I think we didn't know. I think it was a bit of a surprise because we knew like the Communist Manifesto was out there, but it wasn't something that those of us that are sane ever paid attention to because we knew it was
Right.
crazy. Like we live in the freest
Right.
nation on earth. Why would we want to give that up? But yet, there are these people on the left that really think that communism is the best way because they equal for everyone. But what they're forgetting is that in communism, things aren't equal for everyone. You have the workers and you have the elites, and they obviously think
Right.
they are going to be the elites.
Right. Exactly. I ask myself that because I've been watching video footage of what's happening in Shanghai, China right now. And it's
Yeah.
so alarming and it's wild. I'll show my mom and she'll be like, "Wait, what? Like what's happening there?" And she's pretty savvy, but it's like things are happening and unless you go find it or follow someone who actually posts that type of information, it's definitely not out there, mainstream media. And so for us to see, we still have leaders who idolize the Chinese president, the Chinese leaders, and the Chinese government. And to see what they're doing to people, this is a taste of our future. And for those watching, go find the information yourself. It's really important for you to see what's happening in Shanghai, China right now. But basically, with this new variant, it's like awesome, great opportunity to really lay the smack down on our people and to throw more people in these camps, pump out some Nikes, like pump out some whatever other, you know, uh, whoever else is using the slave labor there and putting the Uyghurs to work. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy what's happening there right now. And again, that is a taste of our future if we don't fight against these, to keep our Second Amendment, to fight to keep our First Amendment. I mean, there's just so much. It is a taste, and I know it sounds extreme, but it's a taste of our future if we do not fight back, fiercely fight back.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you mentioned earlier that I was an intelligence analyst in the Air Force, and all of my target countries were either totalitarian or communist governments, and this is what they do. This is how they do it. They get people compliant. They get people used to taking these that seem kind of crazy when they're done all of a sudden. But then if you do them kind of incrementally and doing, they've been practicing psychological warfare on the American people for the last 2 years. And so, they have this whole group of people that are saying, okay, we'll go along. We'll do it. Even here in Oregon, or I say, especially here in Oregon, after they took away the mandates. Now, all of it, we still have people that'll walk around outside by themselves wearing masks, afraid of giving something to.
Yes. I mean, seriously, it's wild. I was actually, I mean, I was just talking to this gal, this mother at my daughter's sports, tennis, I'll just say. And I'm like, I'm always afraid of stalkers. I'm like, don't come and find me at a tennis lesson. But anyways, I was talking to this mom at the tennis place the other day, and she was like, my daughter still wants to wear her mask. I don't understand it. And for me, I think it's become like, for those that maybe are a little vulnerable or slightly insecure, it's like a security blanket for some. But then there's some that are just straight up afraid of the virus still. And but yeah, I mean, it's definitely psychological warfare. Absolutely. I mean, even to where these kids feel like they feel more comfortable having their face covered. And that's just so horrible. And it really makes me think of what they do to women in the Middle East, right? You're like fully covered in a lot of situations, and they just have, I don't know the technical name of the garments, but where just your eyes are showing. And so it's just, I feel like it's just inching towards that, and just really
Well,
upsetting.
and right now we have the highest rates of youth depression, anxiety, and suicidality that we've ever had. And it's so much so that our Surgeon General and all of the big pediatric associations are saying that we are in a crisis. We're in a mental health crisis. And, not that, this was really just kind of a common sense thing, but recently there was a study that came out that talked about how covering your face like that limited your interaction with other people and made it difficult for you to appropriately read social cues, which of
Right.
course that's common sense, but it took them doing a study to figure that out. So
Yeah.
we're only harming our kids more by implementing these kinds of policies, and I'm glad that they finally have gone away,
Right.
until the next round.
Yeah, exactly. I see that coming after the midterms. And that's where I'm already like prepping a lot of people that I know. I'm like, don't do it. Just refuse. Like, we have to refuse to do lockdowns, mask mandates. Like, it just has to be something where we flat out refuse, or else it's gone. Our freedoms are just, they know they have us, they know how we operate. It's really concerning. But
Yeah.
all right. Well, I just want you to know I appreciate you running. I don't think people really realize, and I've only gotten a taste of it recently working with some campaigns. It's when you run for public office, not only are you you're putting yourself out there, you're completely vulnerable to what the public is going to say about you. They know where you live, they know your family. I mean, it's such a vulnerable thing to do, and a selfless thing to do, and so necessary and so needed. And so I just want you to know that and the time involved. Oh my gosh, the time involved. So I just want you to know, I know that you're doing all of that, and appreciate it so much, and so many other Oregonians do as well. And really cool attending some. I just attended a few Oregon events recently, one debate for the gubernatorial grassroots folks, and the energy, the excitement there. Oh, it's so cool. It's so needed. So I feel you have success in your future, and just keep doing what you're doing. I'm seeing your name around, which is wonderful.
Thank you. I so appreciate it, Kate. This is a time in our nation's history where we can't set back. We can't just not do anything. And I made a commitment to defend our Constitution, to defend America from enemies, foreign and domestic, when I was 19. And that has been, a driving force for me in this campaign, that we have to defend our freedoms, or we're going to lose them, and we're not for the next generations. And I don't want my kids or to grow up in a country where they don't know freedom. We have so many examples of that around the world, where that has happened, in the last just few decades. And so, we can see how disastrous that's always been. And we don't want to see that
Absolutely.
happen here in America.
No, we do not. We cannot afford to. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate you. You're going to do very well. And thank you so much for coming on last minute this evening. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. And people can find me at letsfixthis.us,
Love
and
it.
you can invest in a veteran, a small business owner, a psychologist, someone who's really ready to fight for your freedoms.
I love it. And you're very personable, I must say. That is something that is so incredibly important, is that you can genuinely connect with your constituents. So, and I feel that. So awesome, awesome. You're a great candidate.
Thanks, Kate. I appreciate it.
All right. Absolutely. You have a wonderful evening, and I'm sure I'll see you at an event soon.
Absolutely.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you. Bye. All right, you guys, awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We always have someone great on Ksok Uncensored. And I want to thank Angela. She came on here last minute for us since we had a cancellation, and that's just always so appreciated. So thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget, we are partnered with Mike Lindell and MyPillow. We have our own code, RAM for RAM. There it is on the screen. We have our own phone number if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, at the checkout, just put in RAM, and the discount code is 60% off. So please check that out. I just bought some sheets because I was washing mine too much and ended up needing some new ones. So I went with the fancy MyPillow sheets, and I love them. All right, you guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you next Thursday.
My name is Joey Lynn Massaros. I'm a stay-at-home mom in New Braunfels, Texas. My husband Robert is a plumber. Just like many Americans, we enjoy exercising our constitutional rights, especially our First Amendment right to exercise free speech. You might remember in 2020 during early election when the Biden-Harris campaign bus drove through New Braunfels, Texas. There was a viral video of a Trump train driving alongside of them, and we were proud to show our support for President Trump. 8 months later, we found out that we were getting sued in federal court under the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871. Triggered Democrat politicians, Biden-Harris campaign staff, and members of the White House cabinet were on the bus and are claiming they're traumatized from our presence next to them and suing us for emotional compensation. They claim we premeditated assault with a plan to ambush the bus and run it off the road, but that never happened. These malicious and frivolous lies are costing our family hundreds of thousands of dollars in the federal court system. We need your help to fight back to defend free speech, not just for our family, but for all Americans. We believe God has called us to this opportunity as a chance to stand up and defend free speech for all Americans, whether we agree or not. So rather than believe that we're being picked on by these Democrats that are suing us in federal court, we see this as a great opportunity to stand up and defend free speech. But we need your help. It takes a lot of money to do this. We have already cashed out our 401k, our savings account, and our child's future fund, just so that we can defend our family's name. We want to be able to hold the left accountable for weaponizing the law system against average Americans, just like you. They think they picked on us, but they don't realize that we believe God chose us as an opportunity to stand up and fight for what's right. You can join our fight to defend free speech at freespeechdefender.com.
Well, hello, my lovelies. It's the Elsa Kurt Show, and I am Elsa Kurt. Thank you guys for joining me. Today, I'm going to have Molly DeFrank on, and she's going to be talking to us about how to detox from technology, or more specifically, how to help our kids detox. And I could use the detox too. So we'll do that right after this. Molly, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I have to say is you're a mom of 6. You look like the most perfect little petite thing. You're amazing.
You're very sweet to say that. Yeah, it is. They definitely keep me busy.
I bet. Do you mind telling me the age ranges, how old your kids are?
Yes, my oldest is 12. She'll be 13 this year. And then I have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and two 6-year-olds and a 5-year-old.
Wow. Yeah. So
I
you're
hope I
my
got that
idol
right.
now.
No,
Oh,
you're kind.
okay. So now you've written a book. It's called, I want to make sure I get it exactly right, Digital Detox, the 2-week tech reset for kids. Correct?
That's
Yeah. Okay,
exactly
good.
right.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
So now tell me, first of all, when did you notice in your own home that the technology addiction or use was over the top? What made you realize that?
I think that, so probably about 3 years ago was when we did our detox with our kids. But before that, leading up to it, we liked technology for our kids. We liked the tablets and the shows and all video games. But we always noticed after screen time, there was like a collapsing of attitudes and some intense sibling fighting. And it's one of those things in parenting that sort of like, rubs you the wrong way, but you got to move on with your day. And then finally, one day I came home, I was running errands, and one of my kids greeted me with, "Can I play on your phone?" instead of like, "Hi, mommy." And so that was it for me. I'm like, "You're so cute. Why are you saying this? Something is off." So I called my husband and I said, "I think we need to pull the plug." And he's like, "Let's do it." So we told the kids at dinner that night, and they were not really happy about it because they love their devices. And I was
Sure.
really terrified, but we went for it.
That's amazing. And was it cold turkey? Like that night you said, okay, everybody, that's it. This is the last thing you're punching in or the last, game you're playing, and now we're done?
So we said starting tomorrow. So it was just
Mhm.
enough time for them to like the whole weeping and gnashing of teeth, like, they were really upset about it. But morning rolled around and we kind of told them it's not punishment for anything. It's just we're trying something new. We think it'll be really good for you guys. And that didn't really help diminish their disappointment because they love technology. But when morning rolled around, they didn't even ask for a device because they knew it was off the table. We're like, "Don't even ask. We're doing this. So, don't bother." And they didn't. And lo and behold, they started playing with the toys on their shelves. They started playing with each other, getting creative, starting clubs. It was like, it blew our minds how quickly their creativity started exploding. So it was awesome. We were shocked.
That's so awesome. Now, I mean, still, it had to have been so difficult because now, did you and your husband like join in with that? It's obviously harder for adults too because it's so much a part of what we use for business purposes and everything. So it had to be limited for you guys what you could eliminate, right?
So actually, I get this question a lot. We didn't. So my oldest was 10 at the time or 9. And it was kind of one of those things where when your kids are young enough, and this is what I recommend to parents, if your kids are young enough and they're using digital entertainment like a tablet or watching a show or YouTube now and then, you can kind of say, "You guys aren't doing this anymore for now." It's kind of like, when you tell your kids they have an 8 p.m. bedtime, parents don't necessarily have to also go to bed at 8 p.m. But as your kids get older, and we found that older kids, I've helped their parents through these detoxes, that parenting role transitions from like authority to kind of coach, mentor. So for the older kids, especially like the tweens and the teens, parents do need to get a little skin in the game. I've had some parents who have done like a social media detox alongside their older kids just to kind of show some buy-in. So for those bigger kids, I recommend sort of approaching it like you would a Whole30, like recruiting it to get your people on board. "We're going to try this thing. It's going to be great. Here's why. I've been reading about it. I think it's an awesome opportunity," and, expect some grumbling. But yeah, the older the kids, the more parents need to buy in.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. And, you made such a great point too that, because I'm sure that's the first reaction, with pretty much anything that our kids say to us, when you tell them to do something or to not do something, the first thing they say is, "Well, how come you can, or how come the older sibling can, or, and the answer is usually, if you're an old school mom, like I was, my kids are grown, but, old school it was because I said so, which now now the parents of today give more explanation to their kids than we used
That's
to
true.
back in the day. But
Yeah, that's so true.
Right. Now, who do you think who had the hardest time? I'm going to assume that it would be your oldest at the time because they've had a longer period of time using technology. Was that the case, or were you surprised at all?
You know, one of the blessings of having our kids so close in age is that it didn't really work out that way. So I think we kind of started this detox before she got into that age. She didn't have a phone yet. And I would tell parents it's a lot simpler to begin then, when your kids are a little younger. So the book is geared primarily to parents up to like 12 and 13, if your kids are 12 and 13. But that said, the principles can absolutely be applied to older kids. I just recommend parents get some more skin in the game. But yeah, I've had friends and other parents I've helped detox online, and it is really important with those older kids too. At the same time that you're unplugging their devices, you're cranking up that relational aspect with your kids. So especially if our kids are spending, 6-8 hours a day on their devices, especially with those tweens, you can't just unplug and like leave it at that. You need to kind of amp up that parental connection component. So it's actually really crazy because we detox our kids long time when parents need it the most. I think we've seen over the course of these lockdowns, kids their screen time has doubled, and the mental health effects are really beginning to show. We've seen, we're in the middle of the worst youth mental health crisis in ever, and every expert is saying this is a problem. You've got teachers and principals saying attention spans are down. Neurologists are saying it's a problem. Psychiatrists, speech therapists are even finding these new speech problems in young kids. But the fact of the matter is, parents, and especially your listeners, if they're parents, they're like, I don't need an expert to tell me that. I see the problem in my living room or at the kitchen table. So what parents want to know is, what is the solution? And that's why I wrote the book. It's a very practical, step-by-step guide for how to do this with your kids. Because what we found is the principles can work in pretty much any family. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. And it's simpler to get your kids unstuck than you think.
That's incredible. And, and the best part of all is that you have the proof. You've lived it, you've experienced it. And, so you're speaking from a place of experience, which I think is, invaluable for anyone who picks this book up or looks at it online and says, oh, I don't know. Well, you do know, because you have somebody who's not just, you walk the walk and not just talk the talk, so to speak, right?
Yes. That's
and you did
true.
your research. Yeah. And you did your research. So, you have these studies too that back up what you're saying. And like you said, anybody who's a parent, even a non-parent of young kids, can look around and see that, and I'm guilty of it too, that we don't engage with people the way that we used to. We don't have those face-to-face conversations. Everything is online, and I still remember, my kids are 29 and 24, but I still remember, particularly when my youngest was a teenager, I remember her having friends over, and they were all sitting on the couch looking at their phones and not talking to each other, or actually, come to find out, that's kind of what I said as a mom. You go in there and you say, guys, do something, talk to each other. And they said, we are. And they held up their phones like, duh. So this actually, even delayed, it really resonates with me that, oh God, I really wish that, I had done that and given them that break from it. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they actually do crave it. They need that structure of somebody actually taking it away from them and forcing them to do that, because it had to be, like for your kids specifically, it had to be so world opening to just kind of breathe and be a kid instead of just glued to technology, right?
100%. You're exactly right, Elsa. And, it's crazy because the status quo, we look around sometimes when it comes to screen use, and we say, well, what's average? Like, how many hours are most people allowing their kids? Like, how long do you let your kids do it? And we'll stop short and say, well, my kids are using the average amount, but we're still seeing the negative effects of the screen use. And there's actually science behind it, like you were saying. So the games and apps are actually engineered to release excessive amounts of dopamine in our kids' brains. So the there are these brilliant people working at these Silicon Valley companies, and they're engineering these dopamine release points into the games and apps. So your kids' brains are being flooded with this dopamine. In fact, it's such high amounts that dopamine receptors are numbing out. So real life just can't compare with the amount of dopamine that gets released in these games. So when your kids freak out after screen time, you're basically watching a dopamine crash in real time. So
Wow.
I mean, there's science behind what's going on in there. And I really believe the tide is turning because parents are looking back and seeing, wow, I think we bought into the marketing when these tablets and things came out in 2011. And meanwhile, you look back and the strictest parents when it came to technology were the very people who created it. You know, they didn't allow it. Steve Jobs didn't allow his kids to touch an iPad. So we're kind of learning more and doing better, and it's never too late to make a change.
That's a really important message because I'm sure there's a lot of parents of kids who are, maybe early teens or just about to get into the teen years, and they might be listening to this or looking at the book and thinking, oh, I think it's too late for me. We're too far gone. We're too immersed in this tech age. I don't think we can do it. So that's a really great message to let them know that it's not too late. You can do this no matter what age your child is. Really, you can actually do this, and you break it down. I mean, you give us step by step essentially. Is that right?
Absolutely, that's completely true. And one thing that I hope encourages parents of slightly older kids, we're foster parents. Several of our kids have come to us through foster adoption, and so we've had several teenage girls in our home for short periods of time, and implementing this, not with them, but the culture so basically the first half of the book is the detox. The second half of the book is where I help parents create their long-term plan that fits their family. So, because most parents don't want to eliminate all technology forever. We don't. We love technology. It's just putting it in its right place. But because we had kind of reassessed and created a long-term plan where technology was working for us and it wasn't this like isolate and consume culture, these teenage girls who stayed with us, all of them remarked, wow, what's different? Like, there's something different here. Why would I rather like hang out with you guys than go isolate in my room? And this is not rocket science stuff. This is like basic parenting tools that have been around since forever. One of these girls came to us and her phone died right when she came. And so I let her use the landline, and then she just hung out with us, and we ate peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and we went for a walk. And she found me after the social worker moved her, and she sent me this long message, and she said, I don't know what it was. I just liked I like being with you guys. And it's an encouraging story because anyone can do these things. It is so simple, and it really transforms because especially for our tweens and our teenagers, we have taken kids during their most vulnerable time, and they're so self-conscious. They haven't done that inner work of who am I and what's my place in this world and what do I believe? And before getting to do that work that like you and I got to do as awkward teenagers probably and tweens, now they're on social media and they're forced to project this persona that is literally conditional like being liked conditionally by peers or being not liked. And so it's just such shaky ground to put our kids on. Whereas the parent relationship and that parent role we get to show our kids unconditional love, and it's really powerful and transformative for them.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, you just made so many amazing points, and I'm with you 100% on this. I look on with horror at, I spend a lot of time as part of what I do, a lot of time on social media, and you see these young girls. First of all, these young girls, you're talking about 13-year-olds who are more put together physically, their hair and their makeup and their clothing. They are more put together and more fashionable than I am as a full-grown adult. And it's alarming because they are still children. They are still children with children's minds and abilities and capabilities and understandings of the world, which obviously means very limited. So it's terrifying to see that this is what they build their whole persona and their perception of the world based on. And, you know, as a parent, it's terrifying to watch because, as you said, the effects of this affect so many aspects of their psyche and their growth as a human being. And like you said, you know, we got to go through awkward. They don't go through an awkward phase. They're never awkward looking, these kids, you know, at least not according to social media. But yeah, it's incredible. What would you say is, you know, I don't want to like give away secrets from the book or anything like that, but what would you say is a reasonable amount of screen time for I don't know, let's start young. Let's say for a 4-year-old, how much screen time should a 4-year-old actually have?
That's a great question. So the beauty is, I think this will look a little different in every family. I believe that parents were put in place to study and shepherd and know their kids and to kind of assess those rules based on how their kid is wired. So for example, you've seen, or the studies have shown that kids who have like ADHD or early exposure to trauma, sometimes they can not have as much screen time because it puts them in a bad place afterwards. So it really varies per child. But that said, I'll give you an example of what our long-term plan looks like in our family. We allow an hour a week of gaming for my older kids. So 9 and up, build in a common area of the home. They can play a video game that's approved by but for our little kids, 5 to 6, and so you said 4-year-olds, we do like family shows together, maybe after dinner and dishes, sometimes during the week, not every night. But other than that, we pretty much don't use a lot of technology. We're done with tablets. We found that, and studies have also shown that the interactive screens does a lot more to their brains to put them in a kind of dysregulated place than the passive shows. But that said, what we found, and this hits on a lot of what parents are afraid of when it comes to the detox. This is a huge hurdle to get over, and that is the fear of banishing the babysitter, the electronic babysitter. And I get it, because when we did our detox, I had 2 3-year-olds and I was homeschooling 2 of my kids, and this is pre-COVID. So I'm like, how am I supposed to navigate this while homeschooling? But the beauty of the detox is that it's reawakening your kids' creativity and their imagination, their ability to negotiate their boredom. So it's not, they're not going to look at the beginning how they look at the end, because they're going to learn how to, you know, what they gravitate to, drawing or coloring or building or whatever. But yeah, you asked about 4-year-olds. I think what's really helpful is to get down to the principles of how you want technology to work in your home. So for us, and I read a lot of books on this, and I don't remember if one of them came from this or what, but we like to base our philosophy is basically we use technology to create or to connect with each other. We don't use it to isolate and consume. So that's pretty much it. And for 4-year-olds, that looks like family shows or movies.
I like that. And that's a great explanation too. You covered so many great things there. Now, one of the challenges I think also is that so much of their education now, partly or a lot to do with COVID, comes from screen time and being on the screen. How do you even navigate that? You know, because they already have this, you know, almost preset amount of time that they, you know, quote unquote, need to be online, whether it's like researching or just simply watching. How do you even navigate that? Is that like doesn't count, or it does count into their time? Does that make any sense?
100%. Yeah. So for example, when we detoxed our kids, my son's math curriculum was on the computer. So I let him do his math. So what we did was we took it out for digital entertainment purposes. So that's what goes during the detox. I did not go into the school, like for my other kids who were not being homeschooled, and say, we're doing this detox, so don't let my kid watch anything. Because I just was like, oh, that's kind of but I do recommend that a lot of times parents, after their detox, they will have noticed and seen things in their kids that they're like, wow, they do so much better without all this. So have a conversation with your school. Our elementary school is really excited about this. So I'm actually working to try and pilot this like resources for schools so they can do a detox challenge together as a school, because it's so much easier for parents. It really takes the edge off if you've got a family friend or neighbor doing it with you or someone at the school. So at least your kids are in the same boat. You can go for a hike together. Your kids can grumble about the detox together. It's okay. They can process that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's
So, yeah.
great. That's amazing. Yeah, you're making this, I'm sure like any parent who's completely immersed or their family's completely immersed in this tech age and their kids are completely, connected to their computers or phones or gaming systems, whatever the case is, I'm sure a lot of them are sitting here initially saying, oh God, there's no way. It's too hard. It's just impossible. There's no way we can do this. And the way that you break this down and the way you explain it, actually, like even me who's so tech addicted is like sitting here going, oh my God, yeah, no, I think I could do this. I could actually do this. If you're walking me through it the way that you do in the book and as if it isn't enough to hear the actual effects and damage that it really is doing to kids, to their brains, that should be enough to do it. But you're making this sound very, very doable. So bravo for that.
Well, I'm so glad that's coming across, Elsa, because that's the whole point, is that it is completely doable and it's way simpler than you think on the front end. But once you get started and once you have that confidence to just put this in play and give it a shot, it will really transform your home and culture. And we had not experienced such connective times as a family and with our kids as we did at the start of our detox. It's truly the best parenting decision we have made to date. And I hear a lot of parents say this over and over. It's simpler than I thought. The results were so much better than we hoped.
Oh, that's so important, I think, for parents to hear that it's not nearly as hard as you think. And, and I think most of us as parents can remember when we were kids, and I think about that. And that's I think that's something that has to be your reference as a parent. Like, remember when you were a kid, you didn't have these things. It wasn't an option. Like you went out, and I hate to sound like that old biddy, but, when I was a kid, we'd go outside and we didn't come back until the street lights came
Absolutely.
But it's true. And I have the greatest memories of childhood, of playing and being out in the dirt and the sun and all of those things. And I think deep down, we all want that for our kids, those same experiences. And, and I think when parents get to the core of that memory of their own childhoods, the actual freedom of it, instead of being tethered all the time, I think they're going to probably find it so much more freeing. Is that accurate, that you felt freed from all of it when you did this?
Absolutely. And also you bring up a really good point about our own childhoods, because parents today are in this very unique position because we get to look back at our childhoods and see, yeah, there was digital entertainment and technology, but like when I was a kid in the summer, I'd eat my cereal watching like The Price is Right. And then maybe I'd stay around for Little House on the Prairie, but then like MASH would come on. I'm like, I'm out. I'd rather go catch lizards than watch MASH. Like I wasn't into that show as a kid, obviously. But kids today, there is no end to digital entertainment. It is on demand, whatever you want. There's no end. And so we have this unique opportunity to show our kids what could be and to help them develop the skills that they need as adults to negotiate their own boredom, to feed their unique gifts and wiring. And that's our job as parents, to kind of step in there and say, I think we're going to take a break from this just for a little while. And I'm so excited for you and for us to see what comes of it, even if you're freaking out on the inside, because I was there too. So that's
Absolutely.
why I wrote this book. This is the guide I wish that I had when we started.
Understandable. I agree. Same. Absolutely. If I could go back in time, I would take this book with me for sure, with my kids. And I want to go back to something you said really, really early on, what you said to your kids. And I think it's so important for parents to remember that, incorporate that in their own conversation with their kids when they get ready to do this, which is, this is not a punishment. Nobody is in trouble. This is for your good, for your benefit, for your growth and your health. And, it's not a punishment. And I think that's like a really important part for parents to probably tell their kids. It's probably one of the first things in your book, I'm guessing, to tell them, right? That tell them it's not a punishment. They're not in trouble.
Absolutely. And that's critical because our kids are really smart. Like they're figuring out how the world works. And a lot of them see like, gosh, I don't like it when I'm in a room with someone and I'm trying to talk to them and they're staring and scrolling. Like our kids don't like that either. And they know. And so a lot of this involves, like, especially for older kids who can have a conversation about it, like asking them questions. Have you ever noticed you're in a room with someone and they're not paying attention to you? And even humbly owning, like, have I ever made you feel like that? I'm sorry. It's so addictive. And for all human, if you're a human person and you have a brain, this can be addictive for you. So you're not alone, and we're going to do this thing together. And yeah, there's so much hope and so much good to come on the other side of it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you wrote this book. I think it is going to be so beneficial to so many people. It is the digital detox, the 2-week tech reset for kids. And it is, I think it's an important book. And I think everyone with kids, grandkids, I've got a grandchild right now, so I'm probably going to get it for my daughter. Great. So they have it because this, the tendency now, you see it in the restaurants all the time, tiny little children, not my granddaughter, of course, but tiny little children with, tablets. And while the parents are talking and eating, the child is doing that, and, and they don't engage, and they don't learn how to interact. And you see it and you're like, oh, you just want to be that weird lady that goes and takes it away from them. I don't do that. I wouldn't do it. But, so this is amazing. And it gives parents, the tips and tools and skills on how to navigate it. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Molly, tell everyone where they can find this book and where they can find you. I don't know if you have a website they can go to.
I do, yes. You can find the book anywhere books are sold: Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, christianbook.com. You can find it all of those places. Or you can find it, I have links on my website, mollydefrank.com. And actually, you had said something earlier about breaking the news to the kids. And if you pre-order the book right now, I have a sample script that it kind of guides you through. It's a pre-order bonus. There's several. Also, convincing a skeptical spouse. So, like, sometimes one spouse will want to do it and the other one won't. So I have a guide for you. If you pre-order now, you can get that too. It's save the marital strife, hand them this paper, I'll help you convince them. So yeah, there's lots of good stuff on there. Check out my website, mollydefrank.com.
That's amazing. Oh my God. That's so exciting. What great resources to have, and things I didn't even think of, with the spouse that might be reluctant. And as soon as you said it, it's like, oh yeah, I could definitely see that being a thing. So you've got it all covered. That is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, Molly, for coming on the show and sharing this information with us. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elsa.
All right, guys, there you have it. You can actually do this. It's not nearly as hard as you're thinking. And even if you are thinking it, we've got the book for you to tell you otherwise. So thanks for watching today's show. We'll see you next week. Take care.
My name is Joey Lynn Massaros. I'm a stay-at-home mom in New Braunfels, Texas. My husband Robert is a plumber. Just like many Americans, we enjoy exercising our constitutional rights, especially our First Amendment right to exercise free speech. You might remember in 2020 during early election when the Biden-Harris campaign bus drove through New Braunfels, Texas. There was a viral video of a Trump train driving alongside of them, and we were proud to show our support for President Trump. 8 months later, we found out that we were getting sued in federal court under the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871. Triggered Democrat politicians, Biden-Harris campaign staff, and members of the White House cabinet were on the bus and are claiming they're traumatized from our presence next to them and suing us for emotional compensation. They claim we premeditated assault with a plan to ambush the bus and run it off the road, but that never happened. These malicious and frivolous lies are costing our family hundreds of thousands of dollars in the federal court system. We need your help to fight back to defend free speech, not just for our family, but for all Americans. We believe God has called us to this opportunity as a chance to stand up and defend free speech for all Americans, whether we agree or not. So rather than believe that we're being picked on by these Democrats that are suing us in federal court, we see this as a great opportunity to stand up and defend free speech. But we need your help. It takes a lot of money to do this. We have already cashed out our 401k. our savings account, and our child's future fund, just so that we can defend our family's name. We want to be able to hold the left accountable for weaponizing the law system against average Americans, just like you. They think they picked on us, but they don't realize that we believe God chose us as an opportunity to stand up and fight for what's right. You can join our fight to defend free speech at freespeechdefender.com.